Hey everyone, today I'm going to be ranking the Transformers movies. This should be fun. Starting off at the bottom of the barrel, my number 7 is The Last Knight. This is hands down the worst movie I've ever seen in theaters. Look, say what you will about Michael Bay's other movies, Transformers or otherwise, at least they usually have pretty good action. This movie couldn't even get that right.
I got the leg! His fat head. Don't get any better than that.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but the action just is bad. And I think part of it has to do with the editing, because Tyrese Gibson as Epps, I saw him in this movie for like 1 or 2 shots for like a few seconds of screen time. After that, I didn't see him. Apparently this movie was originally going to be about 3 hours long, but after a lot of people complained that Age of Extinction's 2-hour 45-minute runtime was too long, they had to shorten it to 2.5 hours. And they did not do the best job of it, because the pacing is too much. They didn't cut anything out, they just shortened things. Whenever there's a punchline to a joke, they cut immediately to the next thing. They don't give us time to breathe. This movie's only redeeming qualities are the CGI and sound design.
I am Nemesis Prime. You are nothing.
Everything else sucks. The acting, the writing, the comedy, the plot, the pacing, the characters. It's just awful. My score is 0.5 out of 5. Number 6 is Revenge of the Fallen. Here's a fun fact. This movie never had a completed script. Now, granted, this is partially because it was made during the writer's strike, but still. Apparently they didn't want to pause production until the strike was over, so they just kept going anyway. What they had was a basic outline of the plot points Michael Bay wanted to hit in the story, but they never actually had a completed script to go along with that. I don't know if they had a partial script or if they just had no script, but either way, it wasn't enough. This movie's plot has more holes than Swiss cheese. The acting is hit and miss, the writing is bad, and the comedy is worse.
This is bad comedy.
One thing I tend to hear from people who defend this movie is, it's a movie about robots fighting, what do you expect? I'm glad you asked. I expect robots fighting. This movie is 150 minutes long, and less than 20 minutes of that is robots fighting. Skids and Mudflap fighting each other doesn't count. At least the action we do get is pretty good. Well, most of it. That's something. The score is 1 out of 5. Number 5 is Age of Extinction. Look, if there's one thing that 4 and 5 have over the first 3 movies, it's Mark Wahlberg. I like Shia LaBeouf, I do. He's a good actor. Sometimes he's a great actor. But unlike Shia, I actually buy Mark Wahlberg as an action star. I mean, seriously, look at this man's biceps. Yeah, that's an action hero right there. Also, Kelsey Grammer is outstanding, and his performance is far better than this movie deserves.
What's the other version of this conversation? The one you sent in the hired help to murder my little girl? Or are you gonna man up and do it yourself?
What's your preference?
Damn! I can sum up most of this movie's problems in 2 words. Unnecessarily long. The action scenes are good, but they're too long. The dialogue scenes are bad, and they're too long. And don't even get me started on that Romeo and Juliet clause bullshit. Hey, guess what? Romeo and Juliet's relationship is not ideal. It should not be looked at as the ideal romantic relationship. They knew each other for 4 days, and their relationship resulted in the deaths of several people, including both of them. That's almost as problematic as the Joker and Harley Quinn's relationship. My score is 1.5 out of 5. Number 4 is Dark of the Moon. This one is actually decent. The whole moon landing premise is pretty cool, and the scene where Buzz Aldrin meets Optimus Prime is undeniably awesome. Yeah, you could look at it as, oh, they dragged poor Buzz Aldrin into this, or you could look at it as, it's Buzz Aldrin meeting Optimus Prime. The cast is pretty solid, even though no one really gets any development. If this movie succeeds at anything, it's action. The last hour of this movie is basically one long action sequence, and it's honestly the best action in the franchise. On the other hand, it has a lot of the same problems as the other sequels. The characters kind of suck, the comedy's not funny, it's too long, and so on and so forth. And the writing overall is still not good. My score is 2.5 out of 5. Number 3 is 2007's Transformers. This movie does two things well that none of the sequels do: humor and damage consistency. Now, the humor in this movie is hit and miss, but at least some of it hits. At least there are some funny jokes. There are still plenty that fall flat, but it's not all of them. Sam's parents are more annoying than funny, but Kevin Dunn and Julie White have great chemistry. I absolutely believe these two have been married for a long time. The other thing is damage consistency. Unlike the sequels, this movie actually took the time to establish which human weapons can and cannot hurt the Transformers.
Be advised, ground teams requesting 105 Sable rounds.
Granted, it's not how Sabo rounds actually work, but just shut up and pretend. It's something. Also, unlike the sequels, I actually kind of like Sam in this movie. He's not your typical movie nerd. He's kind of nerdy, he's a smart guy, he has a few klutz moments, which is also some of the worst humor in the movie. He's not like super awkward, he's not a typical nerd. When he gets insulted, he actually has some good comebacks. And, credit where it's due, he has some game with the ladies. He doesn't really get much of an arc, but, you know, it's something. And finally, this movie does have consistently good action. Apparently the Scorponok attack is based on something that happened in real life, where soldiers actually had to call through customer service in order to get backup and air support and all that.
I need a credit card! Hey, where's your wallet? Pocket! Which pocket? My back pocket! You got 10-pack pocket! Left cheek! Left cheek! Left cheek! I can shoot! Shoot! Hey, pizza!
Also, sir, have you heard about our Premium Plus World Service Gold package?
No, I don't want a premium package!
I mean, obviously it was probably less comedic in real life, but still, I like that that's actually based on a real thing. I really like this new version of Megatron over the animated version, because I've always found it weird that the leader of the Decepticons transformed into a pistol. I like that in this one he actually turns into a jet. That was cool.
Megatron Prime!
it still has a lot of the same problems as the sequels. It's too long, a lot of the comedy is bad, and the writing is decent, but not great. My score is 3 out of 5. Number 2 is The Transformers, the movie. First of all, I'm going to nitpick here. What is up with the title? The Transformers, the movie? You only need one "the" in there. Either make it The Transformers movie or Transformers, the movie. You don't need both. Anyway, sorry, moving on. I've only seen this movie once in its entirety, but it's a lot of fun. The animation is great, the voice acting is solid, and the action is a lot of fun. The death of Optimus is a pretty big moment. Like, I didn't grow up with this, I didn't see this movie until I was in, like, I don't remember, middle school or high school, but it was still a pretty big shock. There are a couple moments that don't really make sense, but whatever.
First Prime, now Ultra Magnus. What do we do?
And best of all, they use Weird Al in the soundtrack. Fuck yes. My score is 3.5 out of 5. Finally, my number 1 is Bumblebee. I genuinely like the 2007 Transformers movie, but Bumblebee is everything that Michael Bay Transformers should have been. It's colorful, lighthearted, and full of human characters who are relatable, believable, and not annoying. It doesn't objectify the female characters, Michael Bay! It takes itself seriously, but not too seriously. And most importantly, the Transformers are not secondary characters in their own movie. This is also the first Transformers movie since the 2007 one where there's actually good humor. And I would say this movie has the best humor in the franchise. It's not all good, there are a few jokes that don't really work, but it's fine. Haley Steinfeld is great, and Jorge Lindenberg Jr. makes for some solid comic relief. And I love that Charlie actually has a character arc here, as does Bumblebee for that matter. The practical effects and CGI are both outstanding, and they are blended together so well that I generally can't tell which is which. Bumblebee is also well shot, well edited, well written, and well directed. The opening scene on Cybertron is awesome, and I really hope we get a movie that's just that someday, but hey, it was something.
They broke into the front lines!
I've lost contact with the capital!
Too many of them! Stand back! Finish them!
And on top of all that, the relationship between Charlie and Bumblebee is naturally developed and honestly pretty heartwarming.
Do you speak? I won't hurt you.
My score is 4 out of 5. Hey everyone, let me know what you think. What's your ranking? I'm assuming there's at least a couple you rank differently. Like and subscribe and all that, and if you don't like the video, subscribe anyway so you can tell me how bad my other stuff is. That's all for now. Stay safe in these crazy times.